Something brought you here, not the algorithm, not boredom. Something older than both of those. You've been living between two worlds, and it has been quietly exhausting. One world speaks in equations, peer-reviewed studies, and measurable proof. The other speaks in synchronicities, in the feeling that you are more than your body, in moments of stillness so complete that time seemed to pause and let you breathe. You've tried to choose. You've tried to be rational about it, and every time you leaned too far into the science, something in you felt hollow. And every time you leaned too far into the spiritual, something in you felt embarrassed. What if that tension, the very thing that has kept you searching, is not a flaw in your thinking? What if it's a signal? You've done the reading, quantum physics, consciousness studies. You've watched the documentaries. You've sat in the teachings. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, a quiet frustration took root, because no one was telling you the whole thing. The scientists stopped just before it got sacred. The spiritual teachers stopped just before it got credible. And so you've been holding two maps that both feel partially true, unable to fully trust either one. You've caught yourself in conversations, nodding along to the rational argument while something deeper in you whispered, "But that's not all of it." And you've sat in meditation circles or watched a channeled teaching and felt the resonance. And then the doubt, arriving almost simultaneously. You've been told that you're overthinking it, that you just need to believe, that science doesn't have all the answers. But those words never landed, because you don't want to stop thinking. You want your thinking and your feeling to finally be pointing at the same thing. There's a voice that returns when the room gets quiet. It says, "There must be a language where these two things are the same truth wearing different clothes." You've been listening for that language. What if what you've been searching for isn't something new, but something that has been confirmed again and again in the most unexpected place? That split you've been carrying and the exhausting gap between the rational and the sacred was never a sign that something was wrong with you. It was a sign that you were too awake for the half answers. Most people choose a side and rest there. The skeptic closes the door and calls it wisdom. The believer stops asking questions and calls it faith. You couldn't do either, and that inability, the thing that has felt like your burden, was your integrity refusing to be satisfied by anything less than the whole truth. This was not confusion. This was discernment, not being lost, being precise. The seed does not split the soil by being gentle. The breakthrough always looks from the inside, like breaking. What you have been experiencing is not the absence of understanding. It is the old framework, the one that said science and spirit must be enemies, dissolving, making room, and now here, in this moment, the language you've been waiting for arrives. Not from mysticism alone, not from a laboratory alone, but from the place where the deepest thinkers of both traditions eventually arrived, silent, stunned, pointing at the same thing. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something. Type this in the comments right now. I am ready to know what I have always sensed was true. Don't type it casually. Type it as a declaration, a signal sent to whatever part of you has been waiting for permission to stop pretending the two worlds are separate. Let it be the moment you stop choosing sides. In 1944, Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, a man who spent his life inside the strictest structures of scientific inquiry, said something that should have stopped the world. He said, "There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particles of an atom to vibration. I must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter." Read that again. The man who gave us the quantum did not conclude his life's work by arriving at more matter. He arrived at mind, at something that sounds with uncomfortable precision like what the Vedic texts called Brahman, the infinite field of consciousness from which all form arises and into which all form returns. This is not coincidence. This is convergence. Quantum field theory, one of the most rigorously tested frameworks in all of science, describes reality not as a collection of solid objects moving through empty space, but as a vast, interconnected field of potential. Before a particle appears, it exists as a wave of probability, everywhere, nowhere, a shimmering haze of possibility. It only collapses into a specific location, a specific form, when it is observed. The observer creates the event. Sit with that. This is the thing most science communicators skip past quickly, because it is too strange for a tidy explanation. But the mystics did not skip past it. The Buddhist concept of shunyata, often translated as emptiness, but more precisely, a field of pure potential with no fixed self, describes exactly this. The Hermetic tradition, inherited from the Egyptian mystery schools, declared, the EE, all is mind, not as poetry, but as cosmology. The Lakota teachers spoke of Wakantanka, the great mystery, not as a deity above the universe, but as the living intelligence within it, the fabric itself. What science now calls the quantum vacuum, the ground state of the universe from which particles spontaneously arise, is described in physics as a field that is never truly empty. It pulses. It is alive with potential, fluctuating, generative. The most precise measurements we have confirm that what looks like nothing is in fact the most dense and energetic substance in existence. The mystics called this the field of all possibility. They were not speaking metaphorically. Here is what most people never discover. The gap between quantum physics and ancient wisdom is not a gap in the truth. It is a gap in the language we've been given to cross it. The map changed. The territory never did. A parable in the 3rd century, in the library city of Alexandria, there lived a student named Hypatia, not the famous mathematician, but a young man who had studied under her school's tradition and found himself at war with himself. By day he calculated the movements of planets, traced the ratios of harmonics, measured the behavior of light through water. He was rigorous, he was respected, and he was privately in agony. Because at night, he sat with the older teachers, those who spoke of consciousness as the substance of the cosmos. And the mathematics that thrilled him by day seemed to shrink, and the philosophy that moved him by night seemed to dissolve under scrutiny. He went one evening to the roof of the library and did something he had not done since childhood. He stopped trying to resolve it. He lay back against the stone and simply looked at the sky, not as an astronomer and not as a mystic, as nothing, as no one, as the question itself. And in the space that followed, the silence that arrived, when both frameworks went quiet, something occurred to him that neither discipline had taught him, that the yearning to unify them was itself the thing they had in common, that the universe seemed to be, in every tradition and every equation, pointing back at the one who was looking. He went back to his work the next morning, but he was never again divided. The field was never outside the observer. It was what the observer was made of. This is where the teaching gets uncomfortable. Because if the quantum field is not just a backdrop, if it is responsive, if it is participatory, if your active attention is genuinely, measurably, physical collapsing possibility into form, then the question is no longer whether spirituality is real. The question is, what are you observing? What are you, with the quality of your sustained attention, perpetually calling out of the field and into form? The nervous system is not just a receiver of reality. Modern neuroscience confirms it generates a measurable electromagnetic field that extends beyond the body, interacts with other fields, and is altered profoundly by coherent states, what the ancients called prayer, meditation, stillness. You are not separate from the field. You are a local expression of it. Temporarily condensed, temporarily named, but made of the same substance as the ground of all things. You are not in the universe. The universe is doing you. You are not learning something new right now. You are remembering something ancient, something that has always been true about you, waiting for this exact moment to become undeniable. You are not a person trying to reconcile science and spirituality. You are what both of them were always pointing toward, a node of consciousness in a conscious field, using whatever language is available to describe the experience of being aware of its own existence. You don't need to choose a side anymore. The ones who built the instruments and the ones who sat in the silence were always measuring the same mystery. You always knew that. You've known it longer than you've had words for it. The version of you that no longer needs the two worlds to be at war. That version is not ahead of you. It is who you are now beneath everything you were taught to doubt. Type this in the comments. I am not divided. I never was. Let that be true, even for a moment, especially for a moment. And if what you felt today is something real, sanar, not inspiration but recognition, subscribe. Not to stay connected to a channel, but to stay coherent with the part of you that is no longer willing to accept a half-truth. You're not following a creator. You're choosing to remain in the frequency of the question that actually goes deep enough. In about 4 hours, something familiar will happen. The clarity you feel right now will soften. The old voice will return. The one that says yes, but the one that reaches for the familiar division. You'll catch yourself back in the gap, half scientist, half seeker, unsure again. When that happens, remember this: the seed doesn't feel itself growing. The shift beneath the soil has no sensation of progress. The quantum collapse happens in the unobserved space between states, not in the drama of the moment, but in the silence after it. The returning doubt is not evidence that nothing changed. It is the old framework doing what old frameworks do when they are genuinely loosening, tightening one last time before they release. Trust the silence. The field is already moving. You have been searching for a long time, not weeks, longer than that. There have been moments you almost settled. Moments you almost chose the easier story, either the pure rationalist or the unquestioning believer, because the middle was lonely and uncertain. You didn't settle. And that refusal, that inconvenient, exhausting, beautiful refusal to accept a partial truth, it was not stubbornness. It was preparation. Everything that kept you searching brought you to a moment of readiness that couldn't have come earlier. Not because the universe was withholding. Because you needed every question you asked, every framework you outgrew, every night you lay awake unsatisfied, to be capable of receiving what you've just received. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing a window that has closed. You are exactly where the deepest part of you always knew you would arrive. The field that the physicists mapped and the mystics sang about is not somewhere you are trying to reach. It is what you are, remembering itself, through you, right now. But there is something I haven't told you yet. Everything we've explored today assumes that you are the observer, the one collapsing the field, the one directing attention, the one standing at the threshold between potential and form. But there's a transmission waiting for you. One that asks a question that undoes that assumption entirely. What if there is no observer? What if what you call you, the one who has been watching, choosing, seeking, is itself a pattern in the field? What if the boundary between you and everything else is not a fact but a frequency? That's what the next transmission is about. And it changes everything we've just explored. At the root, stay coherent, stay curious. It's already waiting for you.